So, what can we do? I want to cover this topic of personal responsibility. People have some interesting ways they think about this. It's your personal responsibility to take care of your family, but it's also your personal responsibility to not destroy the planet. In fact, you would think that not destroying the planet would count as taking care of your family. But so often people are choosing between the two. Well, I don't want to destroy the planet, but I need to buy a new this thing or that thing for this person or that person, or to make our life more convenient or efficient, and so you just keep buying things, and you use your family as an excuse that you have to stay on this treadmill, that there's no acceptable way to step off and just say like that you're not buying all this crap constantly anymore, because that's what we've become accustomed to, and you become that role in your family. We're going to talk about groupthink later, though. This is just personal responsibility in terms of environmentalism. At the very least, we've all learned we're supposed to recycle, right? So that's what I'm going to start here. The 3 R's of recycling are reduce, reuse, recycle, in that order. That means recycling is third. It's the least important in the list. Reducing your carbon footprint, reducing your consumption. Number one is reduce, is the most important. Reusing is an interesting one because there's so many corporations and products and things that put so much work into making sure you cannot reuse it. So in some cases, this means trying to save up and buy something that lasts longer. Sometimes it means reusing bottles, reusing packaging, reusing wood from wooden pallets. Sometimes it means taking something that's disposable and trying to reuse it anyway, like a paper plate. But most of the time, in a world where everything's disposable, most of the time reuse also means just reduce. Don't buy that disposable thing to begin with. Recycling is just what you do once you've made all the other mistakes. So now you've bought the thing, now you can't reuse it. So now what do you do with it when you're done and there's some plastic left? Well, at least we can recycle it, right? Recycling's the lowest on the list because recycling actually has a huge carbon footprint itself. You have to melt down the plastic, you have to melt down the glass, the aluminum. That takes a lot of energy. That energy might be from oil. So obviously you want to try to not even get to step 3. So you should think of it more as a flow chart, like you start with reducing and that's your primary motivation. How do you do that? You can grow it, you can find it, you can make it, or you can do without it. So this is not just doing without things, it's also just doing it yourself so you don't need to buy things. Then reuse is like, saving containers, buying in bulk so you can just not use more plastic bags every time. Buy things to last. Just do not buy the disposable thing. In recycling, part of recycling is trying to not buy things that aren't recyclable. So it's not enough to just buy TV dinners that you throw in the trash and buy soda cans that you throw in the recycling. Try to not buy the TV dinner if you have to throw it in the trash. Find something that you can recycle. Or just go back up the list. Reduce. So let's have a look at the state of the world and see how good we're doing at this. Here, this is carbon emissions by income group. Here you can clearly see the 1% are way disproportionate to the rest. The 1% have 15% of the carbon footprint. The top 10% together basically is about 50% of it. 50% of our carbon footprint on the planet is just the top 10%. That's crazy. I actually just realized that now looking at it. So don't be misled by this middle income. This would be, here, let me draw an example. It's gonna be a similar spread that shows even within that 40%, even though that looks like Oh, so if I'm in the middle, I have the right amount of carbon footprint? That's not what that means. Also, everyone here is supposed to reduce their carbon footprint. It's just showing that proportionately, the richer you are, the more you just have a way bigger carbon footprint. Look at this here. The bottom 50% is 4 billion people, while the top 1% is just 80 million. And the top 1% actually has more of a carbon footprint. That's crazy. Basically, money is bad for the environment in this world, as it is. Here's annual carbon emissions worldwide from 1940. Interestingly, we learned about climate change around like here. So we've made basically no progress. And these two circles here, all right, so that's COVID. And this is the 2008 foreclosure crisis. So basically every time we have an economic downturn is like when we have a little reduction in carbon footprints. And other than that, there's been really no effect. This is what happens when we keep beating around the bush, acting like capitalism is not the problem. Like there's some policy, just some thing we can do, some invention we'll one day invent. This is what happens. That's what happens. Everything just keeps getting worse. So let's take another look at how we can be better. So we're supposed to reduce, reuse, recycle, primarily reduce. Here, I filled these in a little more now. All right, it's not a leap to say that reduce means buy nothing eventually. You grow all your own food, you make all your own textiles, this is the theoretical, right? Right? This is sort of like the theoretical goal, right? The ultimate reduction of consumption would be to not consume anything. Obviously, people need water, food, shelter, but it doesn't need to be gotten within the economic paradigm that reduces other people's access to those things. Reuse, to me, eventually means building stuff out of trash, because at first you're saving containers, you're trying not to throw stuff away. Soon you've got drawers full of plastic bags, you've got closets full of cardboard boxes. You don't know what to do with all this crap because it all seems still useful, but there's so much new crap being produced, no one wants your old crap. So you end up turning your house into like a garbage dump of like slightly used things that aren't that bad, but still no one wants them anymore. And this is like an externalization of the constant consumerism that makes it so even though you have things that are valuable, they're not considered valuable since everyone else is brainwashed to look away from the abundance we already have and try to buy new things, get things we don't have, get things more rare, more expensive. And you could have a house full of free stuff no one even wants, which is crazy. So then the obvious conclusion is to upcycle it. You have to build stuff out of it. You have to make it into like a factory where you can make stuff that's more useful, maybe more new looking. And even recycling, if you really get down to it, leads you to the conclusion of buying nothing, because recycling has a carbon footprint. And then as you can see here, I've started to partition them out because in my mind, as I started to learn how there's different carbon footprints and some things are more recyclable than others, plastic seems like an awful thing to me that even recycling it isn't good. You should really just try not to buy it. Especially when you learn about they make these tiny plastic balls and ship them and they like fly out of the container and they lose like 10% of the plastic before it even gets turned into new bottles. It's crazy. Aluminum and glass at least can become almost 100% of the original amount, so I think that's cool. And even though there's a big carbon footprint, at least you could theoretically melt it down using like solar power or something one day. But I think one of the coolest ideas is to recycle at home. Like I've seen people can melt down aluminum cans using like a bonfire or something. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to do or if that's the best way to do it. I'm just saying, like, imagine we all had little, with the technology we have, we should have like a little recycling plant in everyone's home. You throw the cans in, it just makes new cans. Then you take those to the store and fill them up. See what I'm saying? Yeah, I also wanted to mention we have 3D printers now, and I'm pretty sure the plastic used on those can just be remelted and remelted to make more and more new things. So maybe one day everything will just be like printed, and when you're done with it, you throw it in the 3D printer and make something new with it. Again, those are, I think, mostly made of plastic, but maybe there's a type of plastic we can make that just is fully reusable and doesn't just off gas into the atmosphere every time we melt it and stuff. But again, the more stuff we do at home, the more there's like companies going out of business that used to fill those roles. So all of this leads to like economic collapse and people buying nothing if you really look at it. And this is the glaring issue of our time, that the very economic paradigm on which we depend for food and housing is opposed to the very possibility of sustainability in the long run.